Hello and happy 1st of March. What did you just say to me?
It's the 1st of March?
No, you went pinch punch, first of the month.
Punch, yeah. And you went, this year's going to fly by now.
I know, soz to break it to you guys, but it really is, isn't it?
It will be Christmas before you know it.
Don't say the C word. Welcome back to the latest episode of the Laura and Becky Show. We are sponsored by Clubhouse in Meadowhall, Redbrik Estate Agents and Ringwood Hall Hotel and Spa.
Thank you for listening. If you are new here, then welcome along. Becky's laughing at me because I've had to hold the microphone on my lap and she thinks I look like a sports commentator.
Yeah, well, normally the microphone is on the desk, but Laura's holding it today, and you do literally look like Gary Lineker or something, like doing the sports news. I can't look at you properly. So funny.
If you're an OG, then welcome along. Right, you have something to tell me about yesterday.
Yeah, you know, we were talking about bringing back walks where you find pornos.
Yes.
This has obviously hit a nerve with certain people, but there was a story that I forgot to tell you yesterday about it. So when I lived in...
By the way, if you haven't listened to yesterday's podcast, we don't mean you grab a porno and you go on a walk and you read it. We mean occasionally you'll spy one in a bush.
Well, not these days. This was back like in the 90s when we were kids. Yeah. I mean, do let us know if you were ever on a walk and found a porno like us, because we'd love to hear from you. So when I lived in Birmingham, I was living in an apartment, right, on the top floor. And there was a little old guy who lived in an apartment on the bottom floor. And he was having a bit of a clear out, right?
Right.
And for some reason, he just dumped his sofa outside. I think like the scrap man was going to come round and take it or whatever. So he put his sofa outside. And I just happened to look out of the window one day and down on his sofa. Guess what I saw? Is that the cushions had fallen like off the sofa. Guess what I saw shoved down the back of it?
No.
A porno.
No.
Bloody porno.
Did you run down and get it?
I did go down and have a quick look.
Did you?
I actually did, yeah. I just sort of like looked over him because he wasn't in. I was like, I'll just have a quick look at what he's into.
Do you think it was his?
Yes.
Or you do?
Yes, I definitely think it was his.
No, busted.
Yeah. So there's another place that they're stored. It's not just on walks, they're behind sofas as well.
Have a look, guys. Have a look.
Yeah.
Right, I've just realised I need to play a message and I don't think I'm hooked up to this, which is no surprise, is it?
I tell you what, we have a nightmare with these messages, don't we? Either I'm fast forwarding them or you're not linked up.
Let me see if I'm linked up. Are you linked up? Okay, so also yesterday we were talking about tomatoes
and food shops
and
online.
Food shops, yeah. And we were saying how we're not organised and blah blah blah. And we mentioned Thea from Redbrik, and we were like, she'll definitely do a delivery.
Yeah, we thought she would be an online shopper.
Yeah. Well, it turns out she's not, and she messaged us. Have a listen to this.
So I'm just listening to the podcast about doing online food shopping, and I actually don't do this apart from once a year, and it's at Christmas, because Christmas food shopping is a fucking nightmare, isn't it? However, Becky, you were just talking about when they replace something. So like one time they replaced my avocado with blueberries, and I was like, I can't have blueberries on toast, right? And the best one happened this Christmas. I ordered 6 avocados, and they didn't have individual avocados. They sent me 6 bags of 50. 6 bags of 15 avocados. I had 90 avocados. Fucking 90. What am I going to do with 90 avocados?
Oh my God, I literally love that. I mean, 90 avocados?
90?
What the hell?
I mean, wouldn't you just like, if it's a pack of, I don't know, just give her 1 pack.
You give 1 pack. But these, what they called substitutions that they do, they never make any sense, do they?
Never.
At all. But I love the fact that she ended up with 90 avocados that she had to use.
I also love the fact that how much she made herself laugh there on that message. Just like randomly giggling along to herself.
Well, do you know what? I had to play that message about 3 times yesterday because I couldn't understand what she was saying at the end. So yeah, just in case you missed it as well, she got delivered 90 avocados.
Yeah. That is crazy. Thank you, Thea. Right. Okay. So it's you again. Yeah. I'm looking at the list. I'm like, what are we doing?
I don't quite know what happened to me yesterday. I had a moment that lasted all day. I was very confused, wasn't I?
Right, okay. So last week we were like, the kids are on strike next week, as in this week. Already I'm confused.
Well, no,
the
kids aren't on strike.
No, sorry.
It's the teachers that are on strike. The kids can't go to school because some schools are striking.
That's it. So I said to you last week, it's Wednesday, and you're like, it's Tuesday. And I was like, I think you'll find it's Wednesday. And you're like, no, it's Tuesday. So anyway, Yorkshire was Tuesday.
Yeah.
Derbyshire was Wednesday. i.e. yesterday and today, right?
Yes. So I had my daughter with me yesterday.
Yes. Now that's the key part to this story. You had your daughter with you. So I get a message from Becky in the morning yesterday going, hiya, I'm just on my way to the studio. I'm just a little bit late. It's a little bit of traffic. And then she messaged saying, it's half term. Why have I just seen kids going into school?
It's like, what's going on?
I was like, it's not half term, babe. What are you talking about? And then I was like, our strikes are tomorrow, so kids are at school at normal today. So that was all a little bit confusing because you thought it was half term.
Well, do you know what that is? It's because our kids had separate weeks. Because my daughter goes to school in Sheffield, where the half term was the week before. In Derbyshire, where your girls go, it was the week after. So that was confusing enough.
Yeah, that was confusing. So anyway, yesterday I had to nip over to Meadowhall to take something back. And of course, because Yorkshire were on strike yesterday, they'd all gone to bloody Meadowhall. It was absolutely rammed. It was like a Saturday. So I messaged you and I put, wrong idea coming to Meadowhall. It's packed with bloody kids. Now, bear in mind, at this point, Becky was on a walk with her kid.
I have my child with me.
She put, oh, really? Why aren't they all at school? I literally was in my car and I was like...
You just put, Becky, foofs, foofs. Oh, foofs.
I couldn't cope.
But you didn't even explain it.
I couldn't be bothered at this point.
You didn't even give me an explanation. So then I was on the walk with Lily, and my little cogs were turning in my brain. I was like, hang on a minute, I'm missing something. I'm missing something. Oh, the strike. And then I messaged you about half an hour later, and I went, It's the strike. That's why.
Well, when I'd put, while they're not in school, I'd put Becky FFS. And then the next one, you just put, what is that TikTok we watched earlier? And I was like, she had some kind of breakdown.
Do you know what? It carried on the whole day because then I had a play date with Lily in the evening, right? And we were over there and she asked me something about one of my friends, Emma, right? And she went, Emma. And I went, who's Emma? And she went... Mum, we're your best mates. And I tell you what, it took me a second. I was like, I'm back in the room.
Emma.
I think I just have to write yesterday off. Yeah, yesterday was just an off day,
You were confusing me. I started questioning myself.
Well, it is a bit confusing when the kids are at school, when they're not. But I think the thing here was that my child was with me yesterday. I still didn't realise why the kids weren't at school.
Okay, then it's Wednesday, and on Wednesdays we like to have a guest in the studio, don't we?
Yes, this is a new thing that we've started. We had Thea on last week, and we are absolutely loving this. It's basically people with an interesting story, because if there's something we love, it's an interesting life story.
Yes, so we have the lovely Hannah in today. Now, Hannah, we were actually discussing when Hannah came in where we first met Hannah, and it was at one of our ladies' nights, wasn't it? We first set eyes when you came. It was our actual first ladies' night we ever did, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was absolutely brilliant as well.
Thanks.
Thank you, Hannah. Can we get that in writing just when we get our next one booked in?
So kind of from there, we've just kept in touch, we've emailed, we've had a coffee, and you have a very, very interesting story. And I remember when we went for that coffee, we were there for ages, weren't we? Ages and ages. We talked and talked, and we thought we'd love to have you on the podcast. So first of all, thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. It's always so nice to have somebody in the studio, isn't it?
Yeah, it is actually. You've got some water. Well done.
You're feeling at home in the studio with us?
Makes a change to a normal Wednesday.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's an exciting thing to do.
Well, we didn't know your story before you told us this when we had a coffee, did we? No. It was like the first time we heard it. So yeah, we'd love you to tell your story.
Yeah. So it was back in 2018, and I was at uni. I was just loving life, going out at weekends, living with my mates. Everything was great. And I was working at a pub in Sheffield at the time. And it started really by me getting ready for work one day, put my jeans on. I was like, I can't do my jeans up. I cannot do my jeans up. I was like, I'm so bloated, I can't do my jeans up at all. So I had to ring in sick to work. And felt absolutely ridiculous ringing in saying that I couldn't go in because I was bloated. So I was like, hot water bottle on my stomach and like, right, just let it go away. And anyway, it didn't go away. So like the day after, my housemate said to me, just ring 111 and see what they say. So I rang her, they asked me loads of questions, majority of which I was saying no to, until they said, have you got any shoulder tip pain? And I had shoulder tip pain in my right shoulder. And she said, I want you to go to A&E straight away. And I was like, right, okay, why? She said, just need you to go to A&E and just get checked over. So with my housemates, went to A&E and was stood in there and it was absolutely rammed. And I thought, I'm bloated. I do not need to be here. And one of my best mates was with me and she said, look, there's a sign there that says we can try the GP within the hospital around the corner. So I said, we'll give it a go, but I feel like I shouldn't be here when there's people here with broken bones and everything. And so we went round to the GP and the first thing they got me to do was a urine sample when I went in. And I went in and this doctor said to me, you're pregnant. And I just broke down crying. I was like, I'm not financially stable. I'm a student. I can't do this. And I said, it's impossible. It is physically impossible. It's been a dry few months. It's impossible. And so he just advised me to go back to my normal GP and follow it up from there. So I went back there the next day, worrying that I'd got this immaculate conception. And then went there and she had a feel of my tummy and I was in agony. I was screaming when she was pushing down on my tummy. And she said, you really should not be in this much pain. I need you to go back to A&E. I need you to go to hospital. And she sent me more to like a gynecology department. Again, one of my best mates, she came with me. And they did an internal scan and it just showed bleeding, just loads of internal bleeding. They couldn't see anything that was wrong. So they said, right, we need to operate straight away and just try and have a better look at what's going on. Now, I was obviously in Sheffield at the time. I was only 20 years old and my parents were down in Burton-on-Trent and I didn't tell them that I was going to have an operation because I thought, I know how much my mum worries. My dad is very much the level-headed one and mum is exactly how I am and is a panicker. And I thought by the time they're up here, they'll have drove up panicking. I can just tell them afterwards when everything's okay.
So were you going to be put under general anaesthetic? It's a big operation. It wasn't just like a small thing.
Yeah, so I had to sign for like if I needed a blood transfusion or anything like that. And I said to my best mate, I said, not that they would, but if my parents call, just don't answer my phone. Fortunately, they didn't call, but then I had this operation. It was a laparoscopic op where they went into my left ovary and they opened it up and took out anything they thought looked abnormal. So they still couldn't say if it was an ectopic pregnancy or anything what they thought it might be at that time. They just took out what looked abnormal. After the op, I rang my mum and dad. I rang my dad first and I said, I've had this operation because they think I'm pregnant. I can't possibly be pregnant. But they've taken out what they thought looked abnormal. I'm okay now. Can you and mum come up? And so mum and dad came up and I thought my mum was going to bollock me. But obviously, as any mum would be, she was just grateful that I was okay. And then after that, the doctor came in and said, right, okay, we're going to send this off to histology, get it looked at, and then we'll get you some results back. Mum said to the doctor, will it be tested for cancers? And I went, don't be daft, I'm not going to have cancer. Like, just so flippantly. Anyway, so then it was just a case of recovering from the op and everything like that. And then a couple of weeks later, we got called back in for the results. And I can see it so vividly being sat in that room still. So there was myself, my mum and dad, my sister was back at home, a doctor and a nurse. And the doctor said, the results are back. You have got what's called ovarian germ cell cancer. And for me in that moment, time just stood still for a minute. My eyes had just blurred over. I couldn't really hear anything. Everything felt fuzzy. in a distorted kind of way, hear my mum crying and feel that my dad was consoling her and consoling me. But this nurse, then when I kind of came back into the room, she said to me, she said, in 6 months to a year, this will all feel like a blip. And that has stuck with me ever since. And so then obviously we had to discuss the next steps forward and everything like that. But what had happened within the first operation, when they opened my ovary to take out what they thought looked abnormal, the cancer cells from inside my ovary came out into my abdominal liquid. So there was a chance that I was going to need to have chemo as a precautionary measure. But first what I needed to do was have another operation. This time it was going to be open surgery to remove the entirety of my left ovary. Now, obviously, as well as a young woman, I was wanting to be cautious of my future and look after my future and everything like that. So I was offered the chance to have some eggs harvested and frozen. So after I'd had the open surgery, removed my left ovary, I had to go through having all sorts of injections to make sure my body was ovulating, so that then this was like 2 months later from the original start point, I could then have my eggs harvested. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen the process of having eggs harvested before. It was very wholesome, to be honest, in amongst all the chaos.
Right.
It was very wholesome. So, again, I was there with my best mate. She was there with me like every step of the way.
Can we get a name for your best mate?
She's also a Hannah.
Oh, two Hannahs. Yeah,
What
she
good
does. Yeah, I
friend.
know.
So, yeah, she was with me the whole way. And when I was having these eggs harvested, I tell you what, she was squeezing my hand tighter than I was squeezing hers. But you kind of lay there and there's a screen up on the right and it looks like a snooker table setup. Right. So like a triangle with loads of balls in, and they're like all the follicles. And as they effectively, I don't know what the right term is, but suck a follicle out. This follicle then goes to one doctor and then goes through to another doctor through this little hatch, and then she'll shout, egg.
Stop it, like bingo. Yeah. Hang on, what do you mean the follicle goes to the other doctor?
So as the first doctor has this tube and the follicle's coming out of the tube, it then travels through this hatch.
Stop it.
And the other doctor will then look within the follicle to see if there's an egg. And then when there's an egg, they shout egg. And me and Hannah cried at the first egg. It was so emotional.
I bet it was.
But this was obviously only out of my right ovary as well, because bear in mind my left one had gone at this point. So it was just out my right ovary, and they managed to get 16 eggs out.
Wow.
So they're all frozen up at Jessop's in Sheffield.
They're there now, aren't they?
They are there now.
There they are.
Because I guess you were thinking this might be your only chance to have children if you wanted to have children.
Yeah, because at this point as well, the idea of chemo was precautionary. I was then thinking, I was told as well, if I had chemo, it could affect my fertility. And I don't have children now. It's still a thing that we don't really know if it has, if it hasn't. But it's just something that I was offered the chance. So many women aren't given chances like that. And to have that as just as a backup, and to just know in my mind, okay, I might not be fertile following all of this process, but I've got those there.
Yeah.
And it was just like such a peace of mind. So after I'd had my eggs harvested and they were all put away in a freezer at Jessop's, we then started talking about the idea of having to have chemo. And this was late December. And I said, look, can I just have Christmas first? And if I need to start it in January. And the idea was that I was going to have chemo as a precautionary measure. But then over Christmas time, they got back in touch and said, look, we know you said you wanted it precautionary, but you'd have to have it now anyway, even if you'd agreed to not, just because of the way that all my levels were looking and everything like that. So I then started to have chemo up at Weston Park on the 2nd of January 2019. And my mum stayed in hospital with me like all the times that I was up there. They were fantastic up there, gave her like a day bed. And they looked after her just as well. And it was, I wasn't scared. I was really positive all the way through, and I documented things like on Facebook and everything like that, and everyone was really supportive, and everyone was saying you're really brave, and I thought I'm not brave. I'm going through something. You have
to have something done
because I've got to do it.
Yeah.
And I thought as well, even though I'd been given a relatively good prognosis, there was that fear of, oh my God, what if I do die? Yeah. Not for me, but for my mum, my dad, my sister and my friends and all those people that were around me and that were my support network. And that was the scariest thing for me, dying for them. And I think it's so much harder as well for the people around this, from my personal experience, the people around the person with a diagnosis, because they feel so out of control and helpless, and all they want to do is protect that person. Yeah. And there's nothing they can do apart from be there and wait with them.
Did you think about death a lot during this time?
I tried to not. I was so busy, and when I was like having my chemo, there was all my uni mates were all there all the time, to the point where I was like, I need to get some rest. Like, can you just leave me alone for a bit now? But like, I'd be at Weston Park for 3 days in the first week, and I'd have 10 hours of chemo on each of those days. So it's 10 hours being plugged up and just hearing those tones and dings that was just, it's horrible now if you hear them again. And then, so that would be on week 1. Then week 2, I'd just go back for like an hour's top up, same on week 3, and then the cycle would start again. And I had 3.5 cycles of that. And throughout the whole process, I'd said to my family, I know it's cringy, but I want to have like a happy days album of photos. And so from the very start, I said, right, I want to take a picture of someone happy. It doesn't have to be me, just so that there's happiness going throughout it. It's really cringy, but
no, I love it.
It's not cringy at all. What a good idea.
It was really nice. And like, if I wasn't the one taking it on that day, and my mum would like go out for a walk around the parks, and she'd like just take a picture of herself with some ducks.
Oh, nice.
Or something like this.
Great idea.
And she'd go out and have these little pick-me-up adventures. Like, I remember one time she came back and she was like, I just tried tightrope walking. I went, what? She was like, yeah, with some students from the Uni of Sheffield. I've just tried tightrope walking. And then she's showing me these videos of her tightrope walking. It's just like little things like that were just the things that made the difference.
It's little moments of happiness, isn't it? Yeah. In the normal life.
Yeah.
That's lovely.
But yeah, so when I was then going, I'd had my first cycle and everything, but my hair then started to fall out so much quicker than I'd anticipated. I thought it was going to be like during the second cycle or halfway through it. It was 2 weeks into my chemo. Oh, wow. And it fell out so quickly. I remember backtracking a little bit. Prior to having any chemo, I'd had really long hair, and my hairdresser, she was really fantastic, and I said I want a bob and I want it purple. So she spent 5 hours doing me a bob, doing it purple, give me an undercut, and she did it all for free. She did it all for free. And she was absolutely amazing. But then obviously as my hair's falling out, there's granted less of it, which was probably a much better thing. But you know, when you're in the shower and you've got some hair and you put it on the wall. Yeah. And you like get it off after. But it was like this artwork on the wall of just so much hair. And I just remember standing in the shower and crying.
Yeah, that must be such a scary feeling, sort of seeing it and feeling it come out.
Yeah. And I just remember just shouting at my mum, and I was like, just look at this. And then I'd get out of the shower, and I was so scared to touch it, to dry it, because I thought the moment I touch it, more's going to come out. Yeah. So that was like my last time washing it, because I thought I'd rather have greasy hair than no hair at that moment in time. And as well, towards the end of January, a really good friend of mine, James, he is renowned for his awesome hair, and he'd said to me, I'm shaving mine with you. So we went round to his house at the end of January, and I shaved some of his, and like his parents dipped in and everything, and then my dad shaved mine.
Right.
And that was like a really special moment for my dad to do it, because Mum had been there obviously in the hospital with me, and my dad had been there too, and my sister. But it was just something that I really wanted my dad to do. So yeah, but then the feeling of feeling bold was so much nicer than I imagined it to be. My mum, because I mean, we're in January, going into February, my mum was saying, Hannah, get a hat on. She's like, I bet your head is freezing. I'm like, Mum, I love the breeze.
Oh, do you?
The breeze was lovely.
Was it really nice?
It was really nice. But the thing is as well, like, I'd been given some amazing wigs, and I'd got this one blonde one that I did never wear because it made me look a bit like a spy.
That'd be a reason for you to wear it. I'd like, get this on,
get
some
that blonde
sunglasses on.
And I'd got this like black one going into a blue, but I never really wore them because I found, for me, if you were walking through town and people looked at you, you could see them looking like, is that a wig? Is that not a wig? Or if I wore a headscarf, they'd be like, oh, look away, she's got cancer.
Oh, I was going to say, what reaction did you get?
But when I was bald, people were looking like, because I didn't look particularly unwell at this point, they were either looking like, oh, she's cool, bald hair.
Yeah.
Or some of them might have thought, oh,
yeah,
maybe she's poorly. But I just felt far more confident.
Yeah.
And enjoyed being bold. Not that I would probably do it through choice again.
Yeah. Has your hair grown back? Is it the same as it was?
Yeah, it didn't grow back the same in the first instance. It was super, super soft and really curly.
Curly?
Yeah.
So you had straight hair before, right?
Yeah. And it was just really like wavy kind of curls, but just everyone all the time was just stroking my hair and stroking my bald head as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah. Something like stroking a bald head, is there? Having a feel.
We'd do that to each other, wouldn't we? We'd have a stroke if one of us was bald.
It was quite a nice feeling, to be fair, having your head stroked.
Well, your hair now, it's kind of like bobbed, isn't it? So it's sort of down to your shoulders.
Yeah.
Did it take a long time for it to grow back?
All in all, probably to this sort of length, probably about 1.5 years.
Yeah.
But I kind of, when it was shorter, I kind of styled it out for a bit. So I was going for trims and having it like quiffed and quite rocky. And I enjoyed having it short for a period of time. But now I never know now if I want to have it that length again, that much shorter, or if I want it longer. And now I'm just so indecisive with my hair all the time.
Yeah.
Should I just start from afresh again?
And where are you up to now with things then?
So, I mean, obviously, what then happened is after I'd finished my chemo, I finished it on the 9th of March, and then I was really lucky to get the all clear on the 1st of April. Now,
and how did you get the all clear? Like, what happened? Was it just an appointment?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, so we went in for an appointment, and all my levels had come down the right amount, and the cancer had all gone, and it was fantastic. I was really lucky that during my chemo, I wasn't sick.
Right.
I was sad. I'm usually a really positive person, and I just felt like I got this cloud over my head. But it was just an option to when I felt better. I don't know what I'm saying. I've lost myself.
That's all right. So we were saying about, so when you got the all clear, did you know that you were doing well before they went, it's gone? Or was it just an appointment? They were like, shit, I'm going to find out if this is gone or not.
Yeah. So it was panicky, but at the same time, it was originally intended for me to just have 3 cycles of chemo.
Right.
And after my 3 cycles, they said, you've done really well in terms of not being ill. We're going to give you another half cycle.
Right, got you.
And so that was just like a final blast.
If you are ill, is that a sign that it's not working as well?
I don't necessarily think so. Okay. I think it's just a case of my body handled it really well.
Yeah.
Because chemo can make you really ill, can't it? And it affects different people in different ways, doesn't it?
I mean, so many people say that they can taste metal. Yeah. All I could taste was milky tea. Yeah. It was horrible.
Did you drink tea and have a biscuit as you were having chemo?
I mean, probably at some point.
Yeah.
I just, all I could taste was milky tea, and it was horrible. So then I couldn't have a cup of tea for a long time. Oh, the one thing I did stop drinking during my chemo was gin, because I didn't want to go off it.
Damn. Are you allowed to drink on chemo?
I was, yeah. I think it depends what sort of chemo you're on.
Yeah.
But as well, when I was at Weston Park and my mum would go out for these walks and stuff, obviously she's got a massive weight on her shoulders. And she would pop down to Cavendish Cancer Care, and she would just have a chat at some points to some of the counsellors there, just to be able to just let her have a bit of a release and just relieve that weight off and that strain off her for a bit, so that she could come back and be better and her best self for me and how she wanted to be for me. And as well, she'd had shiatsu while she was down there.
What's that?
It's a body-based massage.
Yeah.
And she, after she'd had shiatsu, she said, I really feel now I could not drive a car. She said, I couldn't get into a car and drive. She was so in such a state of relaxation.
Wow.
Yeah, she could not have done that. And as well, while I was on the ward, therapists from Cavendish would come in to me and give me shiatsu and other body-based massages as well. And that's what they kind of do, just to see if they can just help relieve the strain for the patients as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then after I got the all clear on the 1st of April, exactly a month after that, I had my 21st birthday. Yay. So that was a massive celebration.
Cool. God, I bet.
Yeah.
Did you drink lots of gin then?
Yes. I made up for it then.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. And then I went back to uni and I just kind of got on with life as normal, and life felt normal for quite a period of time. I'd had a job for a couple of years, and then I was really lucky to be able to get actually into the charity sector and get a fundraising job with Cavendish Cancer Care, which I absolutely love. And I've been with them now for like a year and a half. They're absolutely a fantastic place to work. Everyone is just lovely.
This is the amazing part of the story, and this was what we loved when we heard it. So obviously you've been through this experience. Cavendish Cancer Care have helped you and your family when you went through it, and now you're working for them.
Yeah, and it makes my job so easy in a sense of,
because you get it.
Yeah, and to be able to understand what other people go through. Now, everyone's story is completely different. Everyone's journey is different. But what's so good about Cavendish is that they don't just support the cancer patient, but their family and friends and loved ones too. And I mean, you've got my mum, for example. She was my mum before, but then she became a carer.
Yeah.
And so then she's got this whole new role that she's not been used to before, not needed to do before. And Cavendish are there to provide that support. And in my first couple of months of Cavendish, everything was fine. And then I started to get some stomach pains. And I was thinking, this doesn't feel right, this doesn't feel right. And I was constantly ringing the hospital, like, should I have a scan? Do I need to have a scan? Do I need to have some blood tests? And I kind of then reached a point where I thought, I am at Cavendish. These things are very much just psychological.
Yeah.
I'll just go and book in with someone. And this is the beauty of Cavendish as well, because people can just self-refer, call up or go online and just refer themselves. You're not having to wait for a GP referral or anything like that. And so I then went and I had an initial consultation whereby they kind of like discuss with you your needs and concerns and see what sort of thing is going to work well for you. And then I ended up having, I think it was around 5 sessions of hypnotherapy.
So your stomach pain, do you think, was your mind?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I'd get it prior to having scans as well. I mean, I'll still have a couple more tests this year.
Yeah.
And then after you've had 5 years all clear, then they kind of let you go, but you can come back if you need to, whatever sort of thing.
So you work for them, but you also use them as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And these sessions of hypnotherapy, I was a little bit sceptical, as I think a lot of people are about hypnotherapy. And there'd be times when I'd be upstairs in the office and I'd be time for my session, and I'd have my work head on and I'd be thinking, I've not got time for this right now, but I'd step in that door and those emotions would just come gushing in completely. And I was like, yep, safe space.
Yeah.
I'm in here now. And what the therapist did for me is these sessions just kind of made me somehow, and I don't know how they do it, but bring it back down to me that, okay, I might be having these pains, but they're manageable. And now, to be honest, I don't really tend to get the pains.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? I guess you go through chemo, so they fix you, as in they fix your body.
Yeah.
Thank God for them as well.
Yeah.
Like the doctors, it's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then you're left with your mind on overdrive.
And so many people think, oh, fantastic, you've got the all clear,
you're
all right now.
Yeah, bye. Yeah.
And it's also crazy the amount of people that are there messaging you. They've
disappear.
gone.
Yes.
Just absolutely disappear. And sometimes for me, because everything was so operation, eggs harvesting, chemo, okay, you're done now. Everything was so quick and so done and dusted that I'd not really had time to stop and get emotional and process it. Yeah. And so then it took me 2.5, 3 years later for that to all catch up with me. And that's how it can work with some people. It can be 5, 10 years.
Well, it's like people who are in the army or go to war-torn countries. They say that when they get back, because it's all just go.
Yeah.
And then it's coming back onto Civvy Street. They call it a normal life. And they have a real problem adjusting. It's very similar because it's something traumatic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? So obviously you were talking about how you were worried for your relatives more than yourself. And obviously, a lot of people get cancer. And so if you don't get it, you're going to know someone who has got it. So obviously you and Cavendish can give advice on if a friend or a family member does get cancer. What do you do? Like, what's the best thing to do? Because like you say, people come out of the woodwork, but as soon as you're better, they disappear. But what would you say to people? What's the best way to support someone that's just got a cancer diagnosis?
I mean, to be honest, for a lot of people that come to Cavendish, particularly if it's a carer, the therapist that you're talking to can very much go through with you the best ways of how to communicate with that person, best ways to cope for yourself. And I mean, we've also got a young people service. So this is for children ages 4 to 18. And because, for example, if a parent has got a diagnosis, that's so hard on a young child. And so our play and art therapists go through those emotions with those children, so that they're not growing up with such immense trauma.
Yeah.
And they can also give advice to the parents on best questions and answers to ask children, because kids can come out with absolutely anything, and you want to be prepared for whatever question they're going to ask, and to be able to provide them with the right answer. So all the therapists, I mean, there's so many different therapies at CAV. There's hypnotherapy, aromatherapy, reflexology, body-based massage, counselling, and then the young people service. So there's so many different things to suit different people. And it's so accessible as well with having, I mean, following the pandemic, a lot of things went online. So there's online groups and courses that people can just tap into as and when. But it's so accessible in the sense that people, we support people from South Yorkshire, North Derbyshire and North Nottinghamshire, but as far as people can reach us, or if they want a telephone or video call, that's absolutely fine too.
Yeah.
But the best part is it's completely free of charge. So
Amazing.
people...
That is incredible.
Yeah. I mean, it's all down to the general public and businesses and things like that, and trusts as to why we are able to fundraise. Cavendish have been going for over 30 years now and have been providing this support for that length of time. And it's always been free of charge.
Yeah.
And so there's anyone can access it. And I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
But you do rely on donations, obviously, don't you, to keep it going, which is so important.
So we get only enough statutory funding to keep our doors open for 2 weeks of each year.
Oh, yeah. Explain this, because I remember you telling us
crazy.
about this and we were like, what?
Yeah. So just everything else has to come from fundraising. And thanks to everyone that fundraises for Cavendish, that's why we have been able to still be going for the length of time that we have. But it really does make all the difference for people to do things. I mean, we have so many like events going on throughout the year and things that people can get involved with. But if anyone's ever like, you know what, I want to do a skydive. Who do I want to do a skydive for?
Yeah.
And we there's fundraisers and support people through that as well.
Okay. Well, what we can do in the description of this podcast, we'll put a link to your website. So if anyone wants to go and have a look, all the details, I presume, are on your website.
Yes, also as well, I mean, there'll be people listening to this who do know somebody going through cancer, or they might be going through it as well. So they'll know kind of where to come and how to get in touch with you guys as well for that side of it.
Yeah, and it's just a case of going on the website or giving us a call just to self-refer, and then a therapist will see you as soon as possible. But the thing is, it's a name worth knowing, just for people to pass on to other people. I mean, we're also starting back out in outreach in Chesterfield, as well as doing outreach in hospitals in Sheffield. So we'll have more presence physically in Chesterfield within the next coming months too.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much for coming to see us
today.
Honestly, your story is incredible. That's the second time we've heard it, but I was literally glued to hearing you talk about it, because it's just an incredible story.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. Right.
Well, that's it. A bit of a longer one today.
Yeah, but the description, so I will put the link for Cavendish in the description box of this podcast. So just have a look at that. Or just if you want any more information, then DM us. We can pass it on to Hannah.
Absolutely. Yes. We will be back with you tomorrow. Have a lovely Wednesday, whatever you're up to.